Okay, we have a new Dharma request sheet. Everybody got one? Qing Da
De Zhen Ting Wei Zi Va Hui Ji Yi Qie Zhong Shen Qing Zhuan Miao Fan Lun Jia Da Wo Men Ru He Liang Shen To Si Li Ku De Le Su Zhen Wu Sheng Will the Sangha with great virtue out of compassion for the sake of this assembly and all living beings, please turn the wonderful Dharma wheel to teach us how to ease suffering, and attain bliss, and inverse and death, and quickly realize numbers.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one.
Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one.
Namo sadanto suchedoye alahari sanmyao sanputoshe.
Namo saranto suchedoye alahadi samyang samputoshe.
无上甚深微妙法，百千万劫难遭遇。我今见闻得受持，愿解如来真实义。Let's do it together since you got it on your sheet tonight. Supreme and wondrous Dharma, subtle and profound, rarely is encountered even in a million eons. But now we see it, hear it, and accept it reverently. May we truly understand the Buddha's actual meaning. Venerable Master and Dharma friends, good evening. Welcome to our Sutra lecture tonight. This is Saturday, July 22nd, believe it or not. We're here in Berkeley, California, and we're about to launch into our Six Patriarchs Dharma Jewel platform. I said it wrong. That's a wrong day. We're about to launch into our Flower Garland Sutra lecture, the Avatamsaka. And we're on the 10 Grounds chapter where we've truly begun the 8th ground. So that's where we'll start tonight. And I'd like to invite you to join me as we invoke spiritual presence. You'll see it here on the cover of your text. People are welcome to join me. We're going to chant the name of the sutra and the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas who brought the sutra to us. Namo Da Fang Guang Fo Hua Yen Jing Hua Yan Hai Hui Fo Pu. Namo Da Fang Guang Fo Hua Yen Jing Hua Yan Hai Hui Fo Pu Sa. Namo Da Fang Guang Fo Hua Yen Jing Hua Yan Hai Hui Fo Pu Sa. Mo Da Fang Guang Fo Hua Yen Jing Hua Yan Hai Hui Fo Pu Sa. Nam Da Fang Guang Fo Hua Yen Jing Hua Yan Hai Hui Fo Pu Sa. Nam Da Fang Guang Fo Hua Yen Jing Hua Yan Hai Hui Fo Pu Sa. Namo Da Fang Guang Fo Hua Yen Jing Hua Yan Hai Hui Fo Pu Sa. In your sutra text, please turn to page 10 and 11. We're at the top. If anybody would like to have a Vietnamese translation, if you'd like to hear the sutra lecture translated into Vietnamese, that's happening up in the balcony, so people are welcome to join. We've got Mai giving us a simultaneous translation. And since we're at the end of July, we still have our stained glass dragon shadows on the wall behind, if anybody wants to check out those shadows. People online who are joining us on YouTube, probably, or GoToMeeting, or however you're joining us, probably can't see those shadows. I'll describe them. They're magnificent sun-cast shadows, which is the interaction between our stained glass and the setting sun over the Golden Gate Bridge. And it comes slanting in through the west here, through our windows, and tosses these moving shadows on our wall, which is quite marvelous to see. Because in the summer, the sun has moved north, and so it pretty much rises directly east, sets directly west. As we move towards the winter, we move in relationship to the sun. The sun appears to be rising and setting over there, so we don't get the benefit of these shadows. But through June, July, and August here in the monastery, we get morning shadows, colored dragons and bodhisattvas on the floor that come and then recede as the sun crosses the monastery. And then about 2 p.m., they start to peek in this window and go all the way across the floor. Now it's at 7:40, and they're on the back wall just about to disappear. So how wonderful to see nature and human art interact in this way. All right, page 10, right at the very top. Okay, we're going to first do the Chinese text, and then I'll give you a line, you give it back. And when we get to the English, we're going to do it in unison. We're going to read together. Ready? Here we go. 譬如比丘，具足神通，得心自在，次第乃至，入灭尽定，一切动心，意想分别，悉皆止息。此菩萨摩诃萨，亦复如是。住不动地，即舍一切功用行，得无功用法，身口意业，念无皆息，住于报行。Okay, good. Thank you for that. Let's look at page 11 now at the top, and we'll read together. Here we go. Ready? He is like a bhikshu endowed with psychic powers who realizes sovereignty of mind and then can go on in succession and finally enter the samadhi of still quiescence. For him, all movements of mind, thought, and discriminations cease. The same thing happens to this bodhisattva. Can't hear you all. When he rests on the ground of stability, he immediately lets go of all actions that require deliberate effort, and he realizes the teachings of effortlessness. For him, all karma of body, mouth, and mind, and all subtle connections of thought cease, and he rests in response practices. Great. Could I have just a touch more volume? It went down too far. So we're looking at the Bodhisattva. This is an awakened being. The sutra is giving us a description of how he thinks, how he functions, how he talks. Most important is how he thinks, the thoughts that transpire. Could be a female, could be a male, that's not important. Tonight we have two images, two analogies. Why? It's because the sutra is describing something that's too hard to grasp by yourself organically. This is a state of advanced practice that anybody can accomplish, but you have to go to that level, step by step, to get there, right? What would it be like? Let's just, for example, flying an airplane. Who flies airplanes? People, men and women, pilots, right? But sit you down behind the stick of a jetliner or even a Cessna or a Piper Cub, and without instructions, you won't be able to fly it. The plane won't take off, or if it does, it'll be a danger to you and to whoever is in the path of the plane, right? People fly the plane, but just not you, not me, because I don't know how. Likewise, we get an analogy here because this is advanced practice. This is not beginners, this is not intermediate. This is a Bodhi Pusa. This is a Bodhisattva on the 8th stage, 8th ground. And theoretically, anybody can get here, but without grounds 1 through 7, can't do it. So, the sutra, in order to communicate that, gives us a picture. What's it like? Okay? It points to something closer to us to illustrate something that's going to be far away from us. So, thank you, Sutra, for making it, for giving us a stepping stone across the creek, right? We have to cross over the river, and here are some stones that we can walk on to get there safely. Okay. He is like a bhikshu endowed with psychic powers. Who is? This is our 8th stage Bodhisattva, Bodhipusa. He's like what? He's like somebody who's got shantong miaoyong. What is somebody with shantong? Okay, we have to know what that is in order to make the picture work, right? So what is shantong? Shantong are psychic powers. Let's use that English. Psychic abilities. We used to call them spiritual penetrations, which is pure Chinglish. Shantong, spiritual penetrate. That's not English. Nobody has a penetration, right? As a noun, that's an unusual word. So if we say someone who has psychic powers, we kind of have a clue what that might be. They're very specific. They're abilities in the mind that you have latent potential, that I have latent potential. They're usually talked about as 五言六通 in Chinese, 5 kinds of vision and then 6 abilities. Let's just talk about the abilities, right? The first one is called the Deva eye, the ability to see into the heavens, the ability to see into the hells. 天眼通. Okay? And it's real. You can actually, without any apparatus, you don't get a telescope or you don't have to go online or subscribe to anything. With your body and mind, same one that you're using right now, you're able to see everything going on in the heavens and everything going on in the hells and all the realms in between. So, not fairy tales, not superpowers, not Marvel comics on the screen, right? It's genuine. But it is genuine. It's not pretend. And because it sounds so compelling, and because you don't know if somebody has that ability, so it's open to a lot of fakery. It's open to lots of claims. Oh, I've got, heavenly eye, like Deva eye, I can see what's going on, in the heavens. You want to know where your ancestors are? Where your mom is who passed away? Ask me. Of course, a red envelope will help, People abuse the invisible nature of these abilities and people's curiosity about them but lack of knowledge to trick, to fake, right? Happens. All right. That's the first one. What's the second one? 天耳通, the Deva ear, the ability to hear in realms beyond my hearing at the moment, which is inferior to even a dog's hearing. People often compare unfavorably humans' hearing because dogs hear better than we do. The Deva ear, the Tian Er Tong, makes, when that ability opens up in you, it makes your current hearing sound like a human compared to the superiority of the dog's hearing. You're way, 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 way able to hear better than someone without this ability. And why would you want to do that? Well, you can know what's going on. You can understand people's motives easily. Okay, what's the third one? Ta Xin Tong, knowledge of others' thoughts. Yep, you're a mind reader. And it's really the case. You know what people are thinking when this ability opens up. For me to illustrate it, I would point everybody to the third ground. We're now in the 8th, right? Earlier in this chapter, in this sutra, it talks about what somebody who has the psychic powers open can do. And it's astonishing. It's very specific. It's very clear. It's just like somebody saying, oh, you know, if you're able to bake an apple pie, what that means is you either bought the dough at the store and rolled it out, or you got the flour on the board and the baking powder and the sugar and the salt, and you rolled it out and you put the apples, cooked the apples, put them, every step come out apple pie, right? It's that clear. You go step by step. It's a recipe in the third ground. It tells you about these powers. So the ability to be, let's see, okay, I left out one chunk. To relate the psychic powers to we who don't have psychic powers, we have names for them. What is the Tianyan Tong clairvoyance? Right? Somebody is clairvoyant, voyant, like voir in French, to see. Clairvoyant means you can see beyond this realm. Clairaudient, Tian Er Tong, you can hear beyond this realm. What do you call somebody who knows others' thoughts? Call someone who's psychic. Do you say, oh, he's psychic? You can. What is that? There's a name for that. Someone who is knowing others' thoughts is called what, Connie? A mind reader. Yeah. But there's another kind of Latin term for it. We'll come up with it. Okay, that's 3. Deva eye, Deva's ear, knowledge of others' thoughts. There's another one that's very cool. Knowledge of past lives. Okay, and when I was growing up, that was always something that we talked about. If you went to the carnival, maybe the carnival would be in town, not a circus. The Ringling Brothers Barnum and Bailey Circus, which by the way is no more, right? When the carnival came into town, the smaller kind of, backlot, small scale circus, they would often have, Madame Olga. And Madame Olga would have her tent, and you'd go in and put your hand on your wallet, and go in, and Madame Olga would tell you about your past lives. Oh, I see. Eeny, beeny, chili beeny. The spirits are about to speak. I am reading my poor tea leaves. Oh, no. $5 more, and I'll tell you the secret, Madame Olga is in there giving you the whammy. And what is she telling you? She's telling you that in the past you were, unfortunately, an emperor of Rome who was assassinated. You, my dear, were Cleopatra's handmaiden. Not Cleopatra, Cleopatra's handmaiden. You were not bitten by the snake. You were saved, but you saw Cleopatra die, She makes a story and tells you your past lives. It's like, oh man, I got my money's worth. And you go home from the carnival just so thrilled that somebody finally knows how important you were, like you always thought you were, Open to abuse, right? Because why? It's an invisible realm. So that's number 4. The Bodhisattva, the Avatamsaka Sutra's 3rd ground, says the Bodhisattva who has knowledge of past lives can tell you, it doesn't say you, it says knows themselves, where they lived, what street, what their house number was, what they had for breakfast in 1 past life, 10 past lives, 100 past lives, 1,000 past lives, inconceivable nayutas of kashanas, of Upanishads, of lives without confusion, as it really was. And like they can tell for themselves, they can tell for others. And you go, where's that information kept? What database holds that? All those facts, right? It says, yours. And the sutra would say, why can't you remember? As if you didn't happen, it happened to you. Why can't you remember? So interesting. Well, I can't remember because I don't remember what I did when I was 3 years old in this life. All that information is there, and when you are clear and still, that information is accessible. That database is there. Okay, that's number 3, right? Heavenly eye, that's number 4. So the deva eye, the deva ear, knowledge of others' thoughts, knowledge of past lives. I don't think past lives has a Latinate name. It's not Claire or anything. It's past lives. Okay, number 5 is very interesting because it's called Shenzu Tong, and you could say spiritual feet, right? If Zu was translated as Jiao, but it's not. It's translated as the perfection of the spirit. Sometimes you just say psychic powers. And what is this? This is the equivalent of, in the Arhat path, what are called Luohan Shiba Bian, the 18 transformations of an Arhat. And the notion is that if you are a meditator and you sit very patiently, hold your precepts effectively so that all your energy that would otherwise be leaking out stays with you, if you're able to hold that energy in, and then because of your meditation, you're able to transform your heartbeat, your respiration, your lungs, all work in different ways. You enter the dhyanas, first, second, third, fourth, and you get to the state of arhatship, which is to say birth and death has stopped for you. Your body changes. Your energy changes. And what can you do? You have 18 particular abilities that include the ability to fly. How about that, right? You think Superman, Clark Kent, telephone booths, changing into Superman costume, and Spider-Man, out comes the web, and you zoom through the caverns of Manhattan, right? Yeah, but you don't need, it's not Marvel Comics. It's not DC Comics. It's real. What else? It says you can walk on water as if it were solid earth. So the elements are now under your control. You can enter the ground as if it were water. Right through the ground, including going through rock cliffs. Because you have what are called Shenzu Tong, this ability to transform the elements of your body. You can do fundamental alchemical transformations of your body. How about that? It says you can make your body huge to put the sun and the moon in the palm of your hand. You can become as big as you want to be, to the point where you're interacting with the planets. And you can also shrink your body down into a tiny dust particle. Okay? You can, it says, going on, right? You can put water, emit water out the bottom of your body and fire out the top of your body, or vice versa. Fire out the bottom and water out the top, as if you might want to for some point. But how astonishing, right? In other words, once you're able to put an end to birth and death, the way in the Dharma, the way this progressive transformation happens, you are in charge of the elements, earth, air, fire, and water. They have no control over you. In fact, you control them. Pretty amazing, right? And so the Arhat's ability, the Arhat may or may not have the first 3, 4, but the Arhat has this 5th one. Not the Bodhisattva. The Arhat is not a Bodhisattva. The Bodhisattva has the Deva eye, the Deva ear, knowledge of others' thoughts, knowledge of past lives, and then these incredible transformations. Okay, the last one is unique to Buddhas. Buddhas. You know, those guys, Roberto, yeah. Buddhas alone. Why specify that? It's because they say, who has those first 5? Dragons can have the first 5. Demons. They say Mara, the demon king, has the first 5 shantong and can use them. They're called gui tong or mo tong, demonic powers, and they're just the same. Because why? The ability to bring forth these incredible, astonishing, science-defying, right, logic-defying abilities, physics-defying abilities, is mechanical. It's not moral. You can do these things simply by doing your meditation regularly. You can do that. To get to the last one is the province only of Buddhas. It's called Lo Jin Tong. The psychic ability of ending all outflowing energies. You dry up your outflows. You become, anybody, this is showing my age, anybody who read Carlos Castaneda's books, Don Juan, The Yaqui Way of Sorcery, right? Carl, we talked about these before. Roberto, yeah? Never did. You boycotted them. Isn't that funny? Let me recommend them. Now you're ready for them. You could inhale them. You could do it. He's an anthropologist. It's scientific. Yeah. 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 Didn't go there. There you go. Okay. Okay. Well, you were one of those guys who defied the fad back then. You bucked the trend. It was hot. Yeah. Yeah. Uh-huh. Okay. We're talking to Roberto, who is of an age to know who Carlos Castaneda was and who did not get involved to read the books. I think there were 3. It was a trilogy, finally. So what was this all about? Carlos Castaneda is an anthropologist and a good writer. And when I was in college, he reported on his explorations with a brujo. And the brujo is a sorcerer, you could say a shaman, from the Yaqui, Y-A-Q-U-I, Yaqui Indian tribe in northern Mexico. And Don Juan is not the Don Juan, the lover Don Juan from Europe. This is the Don Juan Gennaro, his name is, who is the sorcerer. And Carlos started out as a researcher, kind of skeptical, but he met Don Juan and discovered that Don Juan had a familiar, had an animal that was his companion. It was a crow. Don Juan could become the crow and go fly out at night. And he could do all sorts of magic that we call magic. But it was shamanistic transformations. And so people read this and it was, oh my goodness. And there was a question, did he or did he not take peyote or any kind of substances to get there? Yeah, so that was a big yeah, okay, so Roberto says, stayed away, yeah. I honestly didn't know anybody who went looking, but I'm sure there were people who pursued it. And then there was controversy. Carlos Castaneda, the author, made it all up. And then, no, he didn't. It's real, and back and forth. So he was, I think Carlos survived the controversy because why? He's a serious researcher and a good writer. And it was such a wonderful story because, this is North America and shamanism, at a high level of transformation, interaction with the natural world. And he wrote 3, I think the first book was called A Separate Reality. That was the first one. So if anybody wants to pursue that, it's not Buddhism, mind you. I'm just saying that some of the changes that happen in your human body as you're on the trail of these shantong are similar. They're suggestive of things that Don Juan might have instructed Carlito into. Yeah. So what did Don Juan teach Carlos as the first couple lessons? He said, you must become immaculate. That was the word. And immaculate was, we ran into that word where Immaculate Conception, the Blessed Virgin of Catholicism, right? Roman Catholics. So Mary had Jesus without benefit of a husband, and God came, So God was Jesus' father, not Joseph the carpenter. So, immaculate. That was where we met that word. When it applied to the shaman and the sorcerer and his apprentice, what it meant was, he said, not pure, but an immaculate warrior. You made no mistakes. That was his idea. And if you were following this path, the Yaqui way of knowledge, Yaqui Indian way, you had to be flawless in your conduct as a warrior. Because why? You're out there interacting with elemental forces and the spirit realm that is real. You are careless, you are casual, you will get gobbled up. You won't return. Or you'll be crazy. Or you'll be, you'll turn into the disciple of some spiritual entity that isn't wholesome, You get gobbled by a turtle spirit or something. So immaculate. And that was a real idea. And people, it fired the imagination because you could relate to that. You think, what does immaculate mean? And for Don Juan, as I recall, it meant when you recite the chants, you recite correctly. No syllable, sloppy, casual. When you mix your potion, you mix it exactly. No excess, no deficiency in the mixture. You do it precisely. Just like a cook, follow your recipe exactly. Do you throw in a dab of this or a smidge of that, or do you measure it? Quarter teaspoon. Yeah, quarter teaspoon is not a half teaspoon, right? That's immaculate, according to this idea. So the last of the psychic powers, Lo Jin Tong, means that in your practice you have become immaculate. That is to say, your eyes no longer outflow. That's the word. Lo. It's Lo Jin Tong. You don't lose your visual energy as you look. It's not that you shut your eyes and don't see. It's that you look without attaching. You don't leak your yen shen, right? The spirit out your eyes. What would it mean to leak the spirit out your eyes? Well, watching pornography on the computer will definitely leak your energy out your eyes. Staring at that, and having this sense of that's wrong. Too late. Somehow you feel dusty, right? Ajahn Sumedho had a great phrase for this week. He said, those of you who have come to the 10,000 Buddhas hall are people with little dust in your eyes, he said. I really like that phrase, people with little dust in your eyes, right? It's funny, it was, Alan, do we know, was that recorded? Ajahn Sumedho? We did pieces of it. Nobody did a thorough job. And, it's okay. Yeah. Yeah, very simple. Yeah. I'll talk about that tonight. You want to say?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Hello.
If you want to say what you said? There you go.
Is this on?
Yeah, it's on.
Oh, okay. No, I was going to say that he kept on one or two things, but they were sort of, he hit and hit it and hit it and hit it, and basically was.
Yep. Okay, so we'll talk about that later. Ajahn Sumedho's talk. People with little dust in their eyes are people who are able to look without leaking. How interesting. What about your ears? Who would ever think that there's a way to listen with gongfu and a way to listen that has no gongfu? Right? What is it? Well, the first time I tried to meditate with the visualization of the Lang Yan Jing, which comes from the 25 sages, the Shurangama Sutra, Manjushri Bodhisattva is trying to figure out the best way to meditate. The Buddha gives him a challenge. He says, Manjushri Bodhisattva, what's the best way to zheng de yuan tong? Same tong as this word, the connection, the ability. What's the best way to meditate in order to get enlightened? Yuan tong means perfect understanding. So Manjushri goes out and interviews 25 sages. The one that he picks is Guanyin Bodhisattva's Argan Yuan tong. Guanyin Bodhisattva's ability to, quote, return the hearing, fan wen wen zixing. You're hearing until you can hear your essential nature. All right, first time I ran into that, I thought, what does that mean, to return the hearing? And I thought, okay, I'm going to sit here. Let me see if I can return the hearing. And invisibly, having nobody tell me what to do, I kind of went, I closed my ears, and I got this rush of energy, this feeling of, I think my body heated up instantly, and it was like suddenly I was aware of being full, and I thought, good Lord, I have let my ears leak all my life and not being aware of it. And so we hear about what Hui Guang Fan Zhao in Chinese, turn your vision back, return the light, quote, we say. That's Chinglish, right? Let your essence of your eyes stay with you. Don't leak it out into the world and forms around you, because they're transient and unreal. Just keep that. You can see perfectly, hold your visual energy. You can hear perfectly, bring that ear energy back. First time I did that, it was a shock how much I don't pay attention to what I'm doing with my ears, and that there is energy to save. So when you hear lo jin, the ending of outflows, how about that? Now, do you leak out your nose and your tongue? Well, not unless you're eating. But boy, are you a gourmet? Are you into seeking subtle differences of flavors? Well, yeah, most of us are. We're in a foodie culture, especially here in Berkeley, right? And the Bay Area. And what does it mean to leak out your tongue organ? It means be in there seeking flavor. I can relate to that. I'll tell a story about that later. Now, the key, essential place to quote, dry up your outflows is where? The mind. Oh my goodness, do we outflow in the mind? What would it be? Well, depression. What is depression? Well, many things. It's not, and I can't casually toss it off. I respect depression. It goes everywhere from manic to bipolar to, low spirits. But what that means is you are losing energy through your mind organ, the connection between the organ of the mind and the sense data of thoughts. Somewhere in that mix, we're clinging to it. In theory, ideally, the object of sight, so a sight, something we see, hits the organ of the eye consciousness tells the difference, and it's done. Just contact over. contact, distinguish, over, right? Why don't we use the mind the same way? It's because we are thought-heavy people. We think it, and then we react to that thought, and then we judge the reaction, and then we talk about it, and we cling to it and fear other thoughts, push some away while seeking others, and we tie ourselves in knots. That's called outflowing with the mind organ. How interesting. Man, if we could turn the mind back, how do you do that? What is Vipassana? Anybody done a 10-day Vipassana retreat, or done Goenka style, or done the insight meditation, right? Mindfulness. What do? Thought rises, recognize it clearly, it's gone. Everything that rises in the mind ceases in the mind. That ends the outflow of the mind. Suddenly all this energy is yours, because you're not burning it up, sending it out in smoke, right? What is a doubt? Oh my goodness. Doubts are nothing but an outflow of the mind. Oh, what if? Boy, I don't know. Maybe it could be. Yeah, on the other hand, I'm not sure. Well, what if? Darn. Oh, I hope that doesn't happen. What if? Could you think that might happen? Boy, oh boy. Right? Outflowing in the thoughts. Totally unreal. No more valuable than a dust bunny under your bed are doubts, right? What do you do with dust bunnies under the bed? Sweep them up. Put them in the garbage can, right? But we cling to those doubts, right? Because why? Mostly nobody shows us that there's an alternative. Sadly, our minds are pretty much no-fly zones. They're gardens with weeds and spare tires and gravel that we don't go and clean up. Why? In my education, nobody ever suggested that was worthwhile to do, and I didn't see anybody doing it. I wanted to study psychology as a freshman in college, and it was a class on cognitive dissonance, because the professor had written a book on cognitive. He taught, I wanted to find out about my mind, and he taught one topic for 10 weeks, cognitive dissonance. And then my classmate, who went on to get his doctorate in psychology, not psychiatry, learned all about psychosis and neurosis and paranoia and schizophrenia and all the pathologies, the mind when it's sick and needs to be cured. Why? Freud. He loved Sigmund Freud. Nobody talked about the mind as a tool, as an organ that can be used skillfully or unskillfully, but most of all can be used. Okay, the sixth psychic power, lo, jin, tong, drying up outflows. The Buddha has done it. Why don't demons have number 6? They don't wanna dry up outflows. Their joy, their thrill, their value comes from sucking up other people's outflows left and right, right? It's called the, what's the name of the sixth desire realm, heaven? It's, it's the joy from others, transfer, ta hua zai. You suck up other people's energy because they're outflowing. All right, what's a major outflow of the mind? Anger. Oh my goodness. When we get really, really angry, we burn up all that good energy. So, you understand. The Buddha has ended all outflows of the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and mind, so that what? He's, quote, healthy, mentally healthy person. And all that energy is his to transform into samadhi, which we're going to find out about later. All right, there we go. Now, there will be a quiz tomorrow. You ready? First one, the Deva I, the Tianyan. It's not heavenly. Heavenly is an adjective. It's not the heavenly eye. It's the Deva I, the ability to see into the heavens. Number 2, the Deva ear, so hearing extended. Number 3, knowledge of others' thoughts. Number 4, knowledge of past lives. Number 5, psychic powers, the 18 transformations. And number 6 is this ending of outflows. Now, where do they come from? They come from the Bodhisattva's wish to help others. They appear in the 3rd ground, on the 10 grounds chapter, because that corresponds to patience, paramita. That's the 3rd, giving, precepts, patience. At that stage in the Bodhisattva's progress towards Buddhahood, he or she needs those abilities not because they're cool, I mean they are indeed cool, but entirely because of compassion. The Bodhisattva sees people suffering that she cares about, and she wants to know how to help them get past their pain. If you know what they're thinking, if you know what they've been in a past life, if you know where their actions are leading them, because you see the destination, you are much, much better able to help them. You can teach directly to their ability to listen. 2 of those cross over into the Bodhisattva's 10 powers, the wisdom powers that come up in this chapter as well. So the Liu Tong, the 6 psychic powers, 2 of them appear in the Pusa Shizhong, Zhihui Liliang, the 10 wisdom powers of a Bodhisattva. So what do you say about that? You say, you got them. These are yours, waiting for that part of your mind to light up. That's the real takeaway point that I get when I read the Avatamsaka Sutra, which is, this is not Marvel Comics. It's not, the Transformers. It's not something that some mad scientist hooked up like Frankenstein's monster. It's perfectly normal and healthy if you take the steps that the Bodhisattva has taken and are motivated by compassion. That's the key. They don't, yeah. Okay. What you got?
The question online said, how do you train your ears and what's the best way to practice?
I appreciate that question. I'm not going to go into it. I'm going to point you to the Shurangama Sutra. If you go to the Shurangama Sutra, translated by Buddhist Text Translation Society, is a good version, and look at the chapter called The 25 Sages, Arsha Wusheng. Go to the end of that chapter where it talks about Guanyin Bodhisattva, and you'll know everything that I know about it. All right? The only thing that's different about my experience is I tried it. And when I tried it, I discovered that there was a lot of energy leaking out my ears that I had no awareness of. So, try your best. For me to say this is what you do, that wouldn't be real. Try it. See if you get the same response I did. Okay. He is like a bhikshu endowed with psychic powers who realizes sovereignty of mind and then can go on in succession and finally enter the samadhi of still quiescence. Oh boy. Analogy. What's it like? What's it like to be an 8th-stage bodhisattva? You're like a hypothetical bhikshu, a cultivator who's got psychic powers working for him or her. Now, bhikshuni also. And this person, what? De xin zi zai. Okay, 4 little characters, but oh my goodness. If you have xin zi zai, your life is very different than what it has been until this moment. Xin zi zai, word for word, it's you get the mind's self-mastery. Contemplative self-mastery. Zizai means freedom. You can translate it that way. Self-mastery, we sometimes translate it as sovereignty. What is sovereignty? A sovereign's a king. You're in charge of your mind now. Right? What does that mean, to be in charge of your mind? Well, when was the last time you had a bad mood? Was it this afternoon? Is it right now? When was the last time you really got upset with somebody close to you? you don't have to tell me, but I'm sure, if you're like the rest of us, it wasn't that long ago. Okay, perfectly normal. If you get upset with somebody, you have not de xin zi zai, right? You're not in charge yet. Oh boy, you think about emotion. You think about daydreaming. You think about fuzzy concentration, lack of concentration, scattering, right? Or are you obsessive? You think of somebody who's got an obsessive disorder, who insists that it's got to be this way or else everything has to stop until you control things. That's 不得心自在. You haven't got control of your mind. So, this bhikshu has. It's like a bhikshu whose mind listens to him or her. How could it be? Well, reference what I just described for the outflow of the mind. From this point of view, from the point of view of the Avatamsaka, the mind is like the rest of the senses. It's like the eyes, the ears, the nose, the tongue, the body, the mind. It's a function. It's a function. And when it functions well, you're happier, you're efficient, you're focused, you're joyful, right? Your emotions have been transformed to wisdom, right? How wonderful to have your mind function like your eyes, just as good, keen, sharp, clear. What would you lose if that were, I remember being at one of my first interfaith gatherings, and there was an Italian guy there. And this Italian guy was very threatened by me. It's funny. He was he wasn't one of the interfaith guests. He was a friend of someone who came. And remember, I was sitting drinking some tea, and this guy came over and was kind of intending to debate me and to prove that being a monastic was basically a pathology, that I had to be sick to be a monastic, probably a pedophile, and distinctly I was a loser and last choice as a monastic. And so I didn't bite. I just kept, why do you think that? Kept giving him space to come out with what he wanted to say. I had given him no offense. He was just picking on me. And his voice started to raise, and he said, I just see you're just, what good is life without passion? Without passion. And he was waxing Italian, and just you could see that he had, his shirt was unbuttoned to the second button, and he had chest hair coming out, and he had his sleeves rolled up, and he was very much into macho self-presentation. And the guy, it was clear that this guy was really insecure. And he was getting a little older and maybe felt like life was leaving him behind. And so he was, he had picked up on the fact that I was a monk and kind of trying to restrain my senses, sitting there drinking a cup of tea while everybody else had wine and stuff. And so he said, well, how do you answer? He said, I want to know, how can you live without passion? And I said, well, we aspire to compassion. It's a little bigger. It's a little bigger state. And it was the right thing somehow to say that, because it was as if the air went out of his balloon. He just, and he looked lonely and sad, And he came over and sat beside me and eavesdropped on the rest of the things I was saying the rest of the night. So this Bodhisattva is got xin zi zai, de xin zi zai. And what would that be? It would be passion no longer rules you, but you can use it when you need it. It's not that you don't care. Someone who is compassionate is tuned in beyond themselves, right? Passion is, I want to feel my six senses stimulated. Stimulate my senses. I want to feel something I haven't felt before. And if I don't get it, I'm frustrated, I might kill myself if I don't get more, That kind of passion becomes this violence. Compassion is the notion of the boundaries of yourself, your six senses, are very thin now. They've been rubbed smooth, so you feel what everyone feels. You're connected to everybody, not just human beings, or not just human beings who look like you with your same skin color and language base. You can feel what whales feel. You can feel what people in novels feel, right? People who have deep compassion have a hard time going to action films with fireballs, where I watched Rambo the other day for the first time, right? I'd never seen Rambo, and Rambo was, Sylvester Stallone. And it kind of defined a genre. It was the first one where the white military guy who's kind of inarticulate goes out into the jungle and turns his machine gun on the gooks who are trying to chase him, right? And every bullet kills somebody. Every time he pulls the trigger, somebody dies, and they die flying through the air, and he kills people over and over and over, And, I mean, for an action film, it's a good action film. It's made Sylvester Stallone kind of an icon of imperial violence, but if you have dissolved the boundaries of your senses and the ego, watching so many people die on the screen is not a lot different than experiencing it in reality, and you don't put yourself there. It's too painful. So the guy who wanted me to be more passionate was in fact looking for connection and looking in the wrong place, right? Stimulate my senses locks you deeper into your brokenness from the world around you, and the other direction, reducing the investment in me and mine, what I want and what I hate. More of that, less of that. Reducing that, in fact, increases your connection. You feel less lonely. You feel more connected. You feel, ultimately, tong ti, dabe, same body, great compassion. That's the phrase. And at various times when you'd ask Master Hua, you say, Shifu, what's the highest state? And at one point he said, no attachments. He said, what's the highest state, Shifu? No attachments. Sounds so simple. What does that mean, right? But on another occasion, Shifu, what's the highest state? He said, great compassion. The Buddha isn't there. The Buddha doesn't live in great compassion. The Buddha's in nirvana. He's gone, right? The Bodhisattvas, which are often Buddhas, come back. We discover that in the Mahayana. There's this teaching that Buddhas, preferring to stay connected, come back in a Bodhisattva's body to live in this state of tongti, dabe, same body, great compassion. So you are the same as mosquitoes and bacteria and whales and even Republicans, if you can imagine. Identity with all life forms, So he can go on in succession and finally enter the samadhi of still quiescence. All right. What is the samadhi of still quiescence? That's our best attempt to translate, which is something that is called mie jin ding. The samadhi of still quiescence, 3 characters. It's a ding, a samadhi. Mie jin means you're wiped out forever. You could say extinguished forever. Mie means done. gone. Jin means absolutely. So it's the absolutely gone samadhi. Nothing left samadhi. Okay? What's that? Nothing that you want if you're on this path. That's key. This is considered a dead end for the cultivator, right? So the Bodhisattva can go there, but he doesn't stay there, right? This, from the Bodhisattva's point of view, would be a failure of resolve. But it's a stop along the way. And that's very significant for this phase of the practice of the eighth ground, the eighth stage. This Bodhisattva is going on. If you get to the Mie Jin Ding, to this level of, sometimes we say trance, it is a trance state where you're absorbed. They talk about it as an absorption sometimes because you get absorbed in the state. If you stay here, your vows wither away, right? They say it's extremely pleasant. It's very, clean, but it's not different from an arhat's nirvana. It's a kind of nirvana, but it's a dead end. Mie Jin Ding. And this Bodhisattva gets there, but doesn't stay there. Okay? We're going to find out what happens. The Buddhas come and pull him out, or her out of that state. They say, no, don't stay there. Because why? You will be lost to living beings who need you to come and teach them. You're not going to teach from that place. You just stay there. Okay? Interesting, huh? That's a reject state from the point of view of the Bodhisattva who wants to continue. This is not Buddhahood. It's definitely something you've obtained through your hard work, and it's a lofty state. It's considered to be brand X. This is inferior samadhi. Okay? This Bodhisattva can sequentially enter even up to the samadhi of still quiescence, of ending forever. Sequentially is referring to a series of samadhis. These are meditative states. This is so interesting because why? They have names. They're known. If you get here, today you're going to meditate, you're going to get into the fourth of the samadhis, which is slightly different, orientation of your energy. Then it goes on to the next one, then it goes on to the next one. It's like the weather, right? How do you compare today's sunlight with yesterday's sunlight at 12 noon? Well, a little overcast. The clouds thinned out at 1 instead of noon. Today it was brilliant at 12. Okay, right. It's all weather. Likewise. This Bodhisattva, today I'm going to sit and it's going to be slightly cloudy. Tomorrow it's going to be brilliant turquoise. The next day it's kind of aquamarine. The next day it's royal blue, right? Different samadhis. They're known, they have names, and you can enter them. What would it be like? I got a better analogy than weather. It would be something like notes of the scale, I think. Okay, so if you're a vocalist, you are, okay, that's a lovely note. There's an octave, and it's different from, right? And it's different from, they're all notes, they're all beautiful and octaves, but they're different. And the Bodhisattva's samadhis are the same. He or she can meditate into dum, 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 da, dum, bum, 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 right? Can do those meditations. Comment?
It came to my mind that it could be called the samadhi or no doership.
The samadhi of?
No doership.
No doership.
No
more doing.
In the sense of action and will and all of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It's what the Christians call doing the will of God.
Doing the will of God. Okay,
Yeah,
interesting. Coming up.
You are not there anymore. You are doing whatever is in front of you that is according to Sila, according to
Yes,
the Dhamma.
correct.
Basically.
According to
So
Dharma.
there's
Yeah.
no more.
So hang on to that thought. It's coming up.
Is it, yes,
It's coming up.
I read it already.
Okay, I
So,
know.
but
I know you read. I could hear that you.
But this is.
Good. Okay. For him, all movements of mind, thought, and discriminations cease. What's going on? Really different mind now. This person, this cultivator has rebuilt their mind. It's really different now. It's really different. No thinking is going on. Doesn't mean vegetable. Doesn't mean zombie. It means transformed according to a Dharma formula. And not done either. Still moving on. There's more ahead, right? But this is the step going on at this point. Okay? So, second paragraph. The same thing happens, this was our analogy. It's like a bodhisattva, or like a bhikshu who's done that, right? Who's meditated to that point. Our bodhisattva, on the ground of stability, the eighth ground, immediately lets go of all actions that require deliberate effort, and he or she realizes the teachings of effortlessness. For him or her, all karma of body, mouth, and mind, all subtle connections of thoughts cease, and he or she rests in response practices. Okay, what are those? I went to the commentaries to try to find out what are baoheng, what are response practices. Didn't get any satisfaction. So I'm going to try my best to explain what the Bodhisattva rests in. But remember what we said, this is an analogy. We don't know this state because it's way up there. This is advanced cultivation. So the sutra gives us something we do know in order to know what we can reflect on something we don't know. So it's like a bhikshu who's got psychic powers and who can enter these samadhis step by step, who gets to the what was your name for it, Roberto? The non-doership. Right. It's no volition. And the hallmark of it is your mind is stopped. Jinhosher? Once again?
I'm just the thought of a self-driving vehicle.
I still can't hear it.
A self-driving car.
Self-driving.
An
Self-driving
autonomous
car. Okay, there you go. Self-driving car. Yeah. It's like that. They say, like that bhikshu, in who we can kind of get a sense of what that might be like, although that's high-level cultivation too. Our bodhisattva, Yifu Shi, is the same way. In what way is he the same way? When he's on the eighth ground, the Chinese says, let's see, ji she yi che gong yong heng. Here is a term that we found in the seventh ground, gong yong heng. Practices that require effort. Effortful practice. He lets them all go. What is effortful practice? Anything that involves your intention. I'm going to help this person now. Doesn't do that anymore. Doesn't have those thoughts. I want to get really close to that person so I can teach him. Doesn't have that thought. That function is no longer wired. No power goes into that circuit anymore. Okay? What the Bodhisattva does now is De Wu Gong Yong Fa. This Bodhisattva masters effortlessness. Effortlessness, right? And Roberto gave us this notion of doing God's will. Okay? So if you replaced God with vows, this Bodhisattva is responding entirely according to his or her vows that have taken over. Or you could say entirely according to precepts also. Because why? They are a form and they function. They're both form and function. The precepts are a mold. I will no longer kill. Okay, I will no longer steal. I will no longer establish sexual relationships. I will no longer speak falsely. If you do that formally in front of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, and you're surrounded by a community of people doing that, you change. Your habits change. And pretty soon, those precepts take on a life. If you haven't done it, wouldn't make sense to you, but lay people, you don't have to be a bhikshu, bhikshuni. Lay people who live according to the 5 precepts feel their function, right? You don't have to think. Who talks like that? Confucius talks like that. Famous passage from Confucius where I can't do it from memory, I wish I could, but he says, when I was 15, then when I was 30, when I was 50, when I was 70, he talks about these 4 stages, and sequentially he relinquished mental control of the precepts. When he gets to 70, he can do anything he wants and he never violates virtue. He never makes a mistake when he's 70 because he's been doing it for 40 years. And it's not an effort anymore for him to do right. Right? He doesn't screw up now because he's been putting himself back into form every time he went astray, for when he was 15, when he was 20, when he was 40, etc. When he gets to 70, he's automatic pilot, okay? We heard about self-driving cars from Jin Hosher, right? Self-driving car, they're coming. It's the thing is ahead of us. And what self-driving cars do is they can regulate speed, regulate braking, regulate turning according to the conditions of the road and the cars around them. And they keep a distance, and they get you there safely, and you don't have to turn the wheel and step on the accelerator and brake. It happens by computer. Okay, that's very nice. Effortless in terms of the driver. Who's driving the Bodhisattva's car now? His or her vows and precepts. And the 3 things: precepts, practices, and vows. So Heng Yuan, right? They talk about Pu Xian Pu Sa, Shi Da Heng Yuan, the practices and vows of Samantabhadra. The Bodhisattva has been doing this now, and through meditation, you could say, has remodeled their basic motherboard. Okay, if you can remember, I don't know how old some of you are in terms of computing, but when I went across, I first started being a snob. I remember being, this was 1987, and the monks and nuns and laity were coming from China to do our Shui Lu Kong Fa Hui, our Water, Land, and Air Dharma Assembly. And we had to translate the ceremony. Big, long translation of Chinese. And so Master Hua instructed me to do the translation. And I remember we had at that point 2 new computers. He always encouraged us to be early adopters of technology, whatever would work to speak the Dharma. We had a digilog. You may ever have a digilog? And we had a K-Pro. I knew what K-Pro, these are early computers. We also had a Osborne, the very, very first personal computer, created in Fremont, right? Osborne was a product of Fremont, California, Mr. Osborne. We knew Mr. Osborne. Okay, this was before the 286 PC. This is before Windows, right? That was the hardware, was the K-Pro and the Digilog. And you took the keyboard off, unclipped the keyboard, and it had this curly wire, and you would type. And the operating system was called CP/M. This is before MS-DOS. This is before Bill Gates, right? Before Apple. CP/M was the name of the operating system, and the software was WordStar. And I was told recently that George R.R. Martin, the writer of what became Game of Thrones, still uses WordStar. I heard that recently, that he wrote his story of fire and ice, and all in WordStar. Fortran, you're earlier than we were. Man, that's cards. The cards. That's early. Or I bowed it. There we go. 前辈, So, I knew that was it. Yeah, well, I just got started after that. Say what? Kai knows. Kai is a veteran, right? WordStar. Yep. So anyway, I was snooty. I said, I don't want no stinking computer. I held up a Malby. I said, this is my word processor. One character at a time. Right? I was really snooty. This is my word. I had a writing brush, right? A Malby. One character at a time. I was really snooty. And so it was the former Hangzhou, Gary Leinbarger, who said, okay, smart guy. He said, watch. And he took the first page of the document we were going to translate, and he's going, type, and I'm watching these words appear on the screen, in green, the green pulsing cursor, and I'm like, boy, that's fast, So I sat down, and it took about 2 hours, and I was hooked. I was using WordStar on CPM. This is before MS-DOS. And then 286s. Can you imagine back then? And then 286s. Then the next step. I went to Montgomery College in Rockville, Maryland, to prepare for my PhD. And I was taking French, a brush-up, refresher French course at Montgomery College. And they had something brand new, which was a computer room. No college had one. And what was introduced was Windows 1.0. Anybody remember? Anybody suffer through it? You guys are all too young. You don't remember. Windows was the blue screen of death. Remember? It didn't work. It was a ripoff of Apple. It was a ripoff of the Macintosh operating system. And it didn't work. And the SysOp, the man who operated the computer room, was a friend of mine. And that first release of Windows was just a disaster. And every computer it was loaded into broke and froze. And then from Washington, what's the city where Microsoft is from? Not Seattle, no, it's one of the suburbs. Richmond. From Richmond came Windows 2.0. Windows 2.0 was the first one that worked. And everybody goes, gee, it sure looks a lot like the Macintosh operating system, because it was a total steal from Apple. Anyway, then came 386s. Oh my goodness, if you had a 386, and they did in this room, there was one Macintosh. And I went directly to the Macintosh. And it was right then when I got my first Apple. I got a Mac Classic, a modular guy, and was doing Chinese, which Microsoft didn't for years even do Chinese. So we're not going to do the platform wars here, but just to say, think about the processing power back then compared to what this does. A simple smartphone now is able to, I don't know, probably you could figure it out. What if you took a 286 machine running DOS or Windows back then, and you think about the number of cycles, the number of circuits capable on that machine compared to times, 1,000, 10,000 times more powerful and so much smaller. The Bodhisattva is now able to compute like this compared to what he had before. When you get to Wugong Yongheng, effortless practice, you don't think in order to meditate anymore. You don't think in order to transfer merit. It's done by response. It sees a reflection and responds perfectly, right? So how marvelous is this ability? And It's our constant refrain. It's all innate. Every bit of this ability is inside you, coded, waiting to be booted up, so to speak. Just the way the functions of a word processor. Inconceivable to me before that this machine was going to help me translate. Nobody had ever done it before. It was brand new. And sure enough, wow, personal computer, a PC, personal computer. Look at that. I can really go fast. It's efficient and it's fast. How about that? And convenient, you know. So who knew? We have those abilities inside. This Bodhisattva, for him, the karma of body, mouth, and mind and all subtle connections of thought stop. And he rests in response practices. It's now, it's a self-driving car. Doesn't mean careless, doesn't mean casual. He still practices, but it's not done with the same hardware that it had before. It's new, I guess that's key. It's good that we have those references, hardware, software. This is not a change of software. This is a change of hardware. The Bodhisattva is different inside because of the meditation that they do, and it's a better function, more efficient, times 10, times 100, times 1,000 than it was before. All right. I did look up the commentary to that, and the description, it said, it's like a sailboat now. Before you were rowing. Put the oars in the water and pull through the lake. Really sweat, you know, if the wind's against you, you don't get any very far. If you're running with the wind, you hoist the sail and the boat goes by itself. Across the lake. Effortless. Well, no, it's the wind and the sail. Yeah, effortless. You're just holding the rope. Making sure the sail is to the wind, you know. So it's like that now. Okay? So that's the first of two analogies, and there are more to come. The sutra's trying to describe what is waiting for us inside as we learn these functions. Okay. Wanted to mention, you got a question there, Simon?
Yeah, there are two questions from the line.
Okay.
The first question is that, do we have to sit on a lotus position to be able to meditate? I cannot sit on a full lotus, only half. Please advise.
Okay, what's the second question?
The second question is from the same person. How do we know which Dharma board to practice without having a good knowing advisor or teacher?
If you look at Buddha images from the Theravada tradition, they're all in half lotus. Not all, but many. So, certainly you say, can we, should we? You can do anything you want. Many Westerners, people who grew up in North America, never sit on the floor. We sit on chairs, we sit on sofas, we sit on, settees and benches. To cross your legs in half lotus is beyond the reach of many folks in my family, So if you grew up relating to the floor as a place where you sit, like they do in Thailand, like they do in Japan, like they do in China's on Kong in the northern China, then crossing your legs seems to be an option. For many folks, it's not. Although we've proven this with our sixth graders who come from Piedmont Middle School every year. We're blessed with a visit for the sixth grade at Piedmont Middle School. 300 sixth graders show up, and they come in groups of hundreds. And we show them how to meditate. And they sit on the floor here. And of the 100 kids, times 300 kids show up. Probably a third of them cross their legs and go, I like that, right? Another third of them kind of struggle in their butterfly legs, and another third of them go, no way, can't do that. I don't bend that way. So it's not age, it's not culture, seems to be what you'd call good roots somehow, Shangan. So Master Hua from the Chan school told us to cross our legs. Cross your legs. Full lotus. That's how you look at the Buddha. That's how the Buddha gets to Buddhahood. And he'd say, if you can't do it, bend your legs, you'll get there soon. Stretch, do exercises. So that was how I was trained. He didn't give you the option, but having taught Westerners, particularly in Australia, for example, some people can do it, many people want a chair. So try your best. We're considering the possibility of inviting our yoga master, Fabrizio, to teach yoga for full lotus, which would be very neat. He's someone trained in physiology, in Eastern and Western forms of how the body is built, medical physiology, and how yoga can open up places that are tight or limited or twisted. So we're looking into that. The second question, that's the standard, most often asked question, what's the right practice if you don't have a good teacher? The answer is, and I don't mean to sound glib or facetious, whichever one you like. Don't be afraid that you might got the wrong practice. We have a shopper's mind, right? We want the best one. Damn it, I'm going to exchange it. Can I send this back? You give me a 90-day free trial if I don't like it. Of course. Don't feel like somehow you're going to be burned if you got the wrong practice. We have this shopping mentality. You want the best one, the one that helps you win, score, And I asked Master Hua, with that same mind, I asked Shifu, what's the best practice? He said, Yao Nian Fo Shi Wu Liang Guang. He said, recite the Buddha's name, it's limitless light. And I still don't do it. With that much instruction, I still went, I don't have those affinities yet with Amitabha. Someday I will, I believe. I believe that I have a date with Amitabha in the future, but I respond to Guanyin Bodhisattva and always have. I recite the Great Compassion Mantra, and it's perfectly fine, right? So pick one you like, pick two, pick three, depending on your nature. I cultivate a multiplicity of Dharma practices, whereas my companion for years, Marty Verhoeven, did one. He meditated. He was not a reciter. He was a body person, so martial artist. So try them out. And you don't need, Master Hua pounded on us, saying 6 guidelines. No fighting, don't be greedy, don't seek, don't be selfish, don't try to get the best for yourself, don't tell lies. This is the best practice, he said. We go, yeah, Shifu, meanwhile, what should I do, Shifu? How should I cultivate? I just told you, never mind, So he couldn't have been more clear that that's the one. The funny thing is, there's no sign, you can't show that you're cultivating if you're not doing things, right? It's the absence of greed and fighting and seeking that is the cultivation. In other words, the precepts, right? But we want something that's got more to it. So anyway, try your best. And if it doesn't work, swap it for another one. Okay. We'll dedicate merit first. You've got it in your song book there on the back, last page, right here. Dedication of merit. It's also on the back of your Dharma request sheet. saw an interesting blurb on Facebook. Somebody had this printed on their page. It said, if humans were eaten at the rate that we eat animals, we would be extinct in 17 years. How about that one? Now, how do they calculate? Or did they add fish or birds, or was it all animals, mammals? Pigs, chickens. What was it? So, don't know. If people were eaten at the rate that we eat animals, billions per day, humans would be gone in 17 years. Interesting. So think about all those beings who love their lives but turn into food for humans and transfer merit for them. Every living being, our minds as one and radiant with light, share the fruits of peace with hearts of goodness, luminous and bright. If people hear and see how hands and hearts can find in giving unity, may our minds away to great compassion, wisdom, and to joy. May kindness find reward, may all who sorrow leave their grief and pain. May this boundless light break the darkness of their endless night. Because our hearts are one, this world of pain turns into paradise. May all become compassionate and wise. May all become compassionate and wise. Boy, the balcony sounds great. You guys are in good voice tonight. That's lovely. Maybe it's the sound box quality of the balcony, but it's really good. Lovely. Please turn to page 51. Now, we heard from Roberto saying that Ajahn Sumedho's talk is recorded. He's talking about Giri, and it was very simple and elegant. So Ajahn Sumedho came, he gave a talk at the Berkeley Monastery, sitting where I'm sitting, and it's recorded there, posted on Dharma Realm Live, the very same channel that people are tuning into tonight. And you can count the number of views, the number of hits. I think our highest lecture hit is about 320. Ajahn Sumedho has got 11,000 hits. It's our number one, Now, what do you make of that? It's that whatever he is teaching, people like Ajahn Sumedho's teaching. We heard him 2 days ago at City of 10,000 Buddhas. 82 years old, looking wonderfully fit for his age and strong. The Buddha Hall was full. 320 people were listening to Ajahn Sumedho. what did he talk about? Hold on one sec. He talked about what he always talks about, unvaryingly, the Four Noble Truths. And he talked about them so beautifully, so well, so eloquently, as he has done for 51 years that he's been in robes. That's the simplicity that we heard about. And I was sitting next to him looking at the faces of everybody in the hall, and people were just like that. And there's a reason why over 200 people have shaved their heads and followed him into the Sangha because of that teaching. Sumedho does it so well, and it's tuned to people's ability to hear in the 21st century. Here we are talking about the Bodhisattva's samadhis, right? And how his mind is transformed and it's hardware that's different, and people are going, really? It's like that. I'm not so sure I want, And Sumedho is saying, and we have infinite frustration, and we have dis-ease, and we have afflictions of the mind. This is dukkha. Oh yeah, I want to hear more about that dukkha, man. But that's me. You're talking to me, People loved it, and it resonates. He's got it. So yes, comment.
I can go, but tomorrow he's going to be at Abhayagiri celebrating his birthday, and they have, I think lunch is at 10:30. So if anyone can do it.
Yeah, it's a co-birthday. He and Ajahn Pasano are celebrating both their birthdays, which are not the same day, but they're celebrating them together. They're both Leos. So if people want to go, I think it's going to be pretty crowded. Little Tomkai Road is one-lane road up there. It's going to be full, but it's going to be quite an event. So anyway, it was wonderful to be able to bow to my senior in precepts. They have not?
Probably, if you turned your computer around 10:30 or 10 o'clock or something like that, you'll find out from the Abhayagiri, what do they call it, site in YouTube?
Yeah.
Okay.
Good. Page 51. He said that there is suffering. There is the noble truth of suffering's cause. There's the noble truth of suffering's cessation. And further, there is the path to the end of suffering. And it's the Eightfold Path, how to live to put an end to suffering. Here it is. If you know the lullaby all through the night, you know the melody, your part is Eightfold Path. That's it. Ready? Can you do it? Eightfold Path. Try it again. Eightfold Path. Now you got the lyrics. If you remember the melody, you can sing right along. First we learn wise understanding, Eightfold Path. That's your part. Here we go. Next we learn wise aspiration, Eightfold Path. Join me. Understanding leads to practice. Aspiration guides our wisdom. Walk it to the end of suffering. Eightfold Path. Here we go. Wisdom's speech is true and gentle. Eightfold Path. Wisdom's action follows precepts. Eightfold Path. Take it up higher. Speech gives courage to the fearful. Action shows the power of virtue. walk the elder's way of wisdom, Eightfold Path. Here we go. Wisdom's livelihood is harmless, Eightfold Path. Can't hear you all. Wisdom's vigor serves the helpless, Eightfold. There you go. Nah. Livelihood respects all beings. Vigor can protect the planet. Walk the way of great compassion, Eightfold Path. Wisdom's mindfulness remembers, Eightfold Path. Focus with wise concentration, Eightfold Path. Mindfulness brings satisfaction. Concentration leads to wisdom. Walk the way of peace and happiness, Eightfold Path. Now, the genius of this song is you get all 8 in one verse. Ready? Understanding aspiration, Eightfold Path. Wisdom's speech and wisdom's action, Eightfold Path. Wisdom's work and wisdom's vigor, mindfulness and concentration. Walk the road to liberation, Eightfold Path. So I would tell the questioner, pick one of 8, your choice. Or all 8, why not? Why limit it to one? But there you go, that's the answer to your question. There's 84,000, do the one you like. Okay, by golly. Got some news, which is next week on this day, I will be in Asheville, North Carolina, having flown there on Saturday, and I'll be leading a class in meditation, music, and mindfulness. Meditation, music, and performance, beg your pardon. So I'll be back on Saturday. This coming Saturday, I will not be here to lecture. Jin Fosher and Jin Chuan will be leading us. And I'll be back the following week to take us through the next analogies here of our sutra. And people should say bye to Jin He, who will be heading off to Malaysia on Tuesday until September. He's going to be setting up our planned retreat in January at Kalampang, our retreat center there. We're going to do a Buddha root farm in Malaysia, and Jin He is going to be doing the setup for that. So we won't be seeing him for a few months. Those of us going to Europe will see him in Europe. Let's see. Likewise, the Sudana Center retreat is happening starting today on Irigare and Nagarjuna, which is even fun to say, much more to contemplate how that's going to work out. A French feminist, Madame Irigare, a student of Freud, and quite an amazing 20th century intellect and speaker, a French feminist, a postmodern deconstructionist, psychotherapist, and Nagarjuna, the formulator of the Madhyamaka, the middle way. Some people say the most important Buddhist thinker after the Buddha, an Indian teacher who is kind of like a Thomas Aquinas in that he reformulated a lot of what the Buddha laid out. The Pali tradition became the Sanskrit tradition with Nagarjuna's formulations. So they're going to be, Doug Powers and Bhikshuni Heng Sure are going to be teaching that retreat this week. Should be wonderful. I can't wait to hear the tapes of how that works out. What other announcements do we have? Jin Hosher?
On Tuesday, Kevin and his 12-step program
Okay.
will be here. Thursday evening, Insight Meditation group.
Can't hear.
Thursday evening, Insight Meditation.
Okay.
And I think that's it for...
Okay, this is summertime and our schedule is abbreviated a bit. I gave the Thursday night talk here 2 nights ago, and part of my theme, I just want to mention this, part of my theme was on a website that came to my awareness through Interfaith. And there's a man named David Ulansky who's been collecting links, active, live, current links to major scientific outlets talking about what they call the 6th global extinction. And I won't go into it tonight because I want to do it justice, but he has 300 active, tight, current links to major publications like BBC, CNN, the New Straits Times, the Tokyo Asahi Shimbun, etc., saying things like 90% of large-bodied fish are gone from the oceans. Think tuna, etc. Sushi. Eat your sushi fast because it's going. The tuna are gone. There's other kinds of sushi, I understand, but so 90% of the large-bodied fish are gone. What are you going to do if you make your living from the seacoast, part of the fishing industry? You're going to be looking for work. The Chinese fishing fleet is down off of Africa now because there's lots of Chinese fish eaters who expect fish in the market, so that they've bought rights to the African coast. So that's one. Lions, probably in 20 years, will be gone. No more. Elephants are being shot now by the hundreds, despite all the controls and the ban on ivory. The poaching of elephants is just going full tilt now, worse than ever. This extinction of species has ramped up in 20 years now. And as I say, I won't do more now because I want to give people a real sense of it. But when you see these statistics and his links, his page of links goes like this. 300 stories in the last 5 or 6 years. We see the stories, we have compassion fatigue, we don't read them. You don't want more bad news, but it's all saying the planet, and the underscore, the underline is it's anthropogenic extinction, human-caused extinction. No doubt. No matter what the president's science advisor tells you to the contrary, humans are cutting down the natural land where animals live. Australia, there are 40,000 koalas in the wild left. Can you imagine Australia without koalas? It's hard. The number one foe of koalas is automobiles, dogs, and no more eucalyptus because it's being developed. They cut the trees down and put up houses. The koalas have nowhere to go. They walk across the road, cars hit them. And they're gone. They're going to go. So, my goodness, 50% of species will be gone by 2050. Half. So, anyway, it was a shocker. And we ignore it at our peril. That's us. We don't survive if the other species don't survive. So, plankton is probably the number one scariest. Plankton, little microbic green stuff in the ocean. Whales eat it. All kinds of things depend upon it. It transfers, it performs the, carbon to oxygen shift. It can't survive in warm water, and the oceans that create the plankton are warm by 1.5 degrees now. Another 0.5 degree and plankton will vanish. And the lungs of the planet will no longer... So, yeah, it's really, really, really happening. And these are living beings that are vanishing in our lifetime because of us. You just saw? Soylent Green. Soylent Green. You may know? You're all too young. Soylent Green is a movie based on a book about what you do when there's a total breakdown in the natural order. Soylent Green is an artificial food product. It's human food. With, given with green food coloring added and flavor added. Yeah, Soylent Green. Nightmare stuff, but... Yeah, it's in secret. Yeah. It's over there behind the fence. Yeah. Hallelujah. Yep. And Master Hua said, sure. He said, we ruin the planet every time. That's what we do it over and over again. Of course. We outsmart ourselves. Yeah, we're going to blow it up, he said. Yippee! So, what's the Buddhist response? Starts with me. If I created it, I can uncreate it by not doing it. Thursday night, I didn't say to them, so don't eat meat, because they can't hear that. A Thursday night group, that's not part of their Buddhist understanding. So. Oh boy, oh boy. Yes, sir, Jerry. Are we going to Ontario or London? People want to know if DRBA is going to Ontario. Why would we go to Ontario? Okay, not as far as I know. There is the next Parliament of World's Religions is going to be in Toronto. If that's what they're talking about, probably, but I haven't heard of any particular trips to Ontario. And London, yes, in September. If it's the path, advance. If it's not the path, don't walk it. Pick out what was useful in tonight's lecture and follow it. Take the useless parts and change it inside and let it go. See you all in 2 weeks. Come next week for the Wuliang Guang, right? Sutra of Limitless Light. Wuliang Shou Jing, Sutra of Limitless Lifespan. See you next week. Bow in respect to the Venerable Master. 阿姆大方广佛，欢